folks. Thanks so much for joining us again at Interact. I'm here with the CTO of Drata, one of the fastest companies ever to $1 billion valuation, that unicorn status. It's Daniel Marashlian. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're incredibly excited to hear from you because I think one of our favorite segments at our last Interact in September was our engineering leadership screw-up stories, where we have an opportunity to hear from an incredible leader like yourself who's been super successful. Obviously, Drata, like one of the fastest ever companies to hit $1 billion valuation. You've had incredible success before that in your career. You founded how many companies at this point?
I've lost track, but I think it was the eighth one, seventh or eighth.
Yeah, you've clearly got this down, right? You've got some time that you put in here. But like we talked about before this, like we hear a lot about successes from leaders like yourself, because you're incredibly successful, but we don't always get to hear about the mistakes and the learning process around those, which is maybe more important, I would say.
Yeah.
So I know you have two stories you want to share with us today, one from earlier in your career and one kind of from your experience as a leader. Why don't we kick it off with that early career experience as a developer?
Yeah, sure. I'm classically trained as an engineer. My, bachelor's of science, computer science. I was a programmer for earlier part of my career. I still code today. It's hard to get me away from the keys, even though lately I haven't been able to code as much. But yeah, the earlier story was fun. It was my first job out of college. I was working at a community college in Phoenix area called Rio Salado Community College, as in Maricopa County. And so yeah, we actually had one of the first e-learning, like learning management systems there. Yeah, so that was in 2005. It's before some of even, these bigger companies like Canvas and whatnot were out. And so we were building that. It was award winning and all fun stuff. And so like early in my career, maybe second month on the job or something, once they finally trusted me enough and trained me and gave me access to some stuff. I remember I was doing something, helping some customer out or whatever it was. And I was in the database. I was doing a lot of database work there. So I was in the database. Select star from blah, blah, blah. Okay, hey, I see what the issue is or something. And so I issue a delete statement. Oh, I got to delete this duplicate record sometime. So delete from wherever. And then I think I don't know what it was. I either forgot a semicolon or I just forgot to put the conditional. And so it just deleted the whole table. So all the students in the whole database.
Oh, and this is you're a few weeks into the job, right?
Oh. Yeah, it was bad. And so I realized what I did when I saw the little status bar was 70,000 records updated or whatever. So I'm like, okay, that's bad. So I kind of freak out and realize what I did and then realize I can't undo it. And then I walk over to the kind of infrastructure DevOps kind of team, whatever they're called back then, and networking team. I was like, guys, I think I made a mistake. I need help. And I deleted this whole user table. And so obviously they were just like, that's not good. Show me what you did. And they were just giving me a hard time, a little hazy, which was good. But, they weren't too worried. They have backups like everything. And, we were able to restore it. It took maybe 10 minutes. So yeah, there was a 10-minute outage there, which sucked. But, we were able to restore it. Everything was fine. Okay, cool. Deep breath, go back to my table. Cool. They helped me. That was good. I learned a good lesson there. And then I'm in the terminal still or whatever in the, editor. And I'm like, okay, let me actually do this now. And I just hit go again. And I just delete it again. I don't know. I just didn't select the where statement or something.
I've done that before.
Yeah, that was bad. So then I walked back over to them with my tail between my legs and just kind of was I just did it again. And
I'm sure they're cracking up at this point.
Oh yeah, that wasn't good. I thought I was going to get fired or something, but they were just making fun of me. That was bad. But that's what I think that experience now to this day, I do still a lot of database look and work and make sure everything's looking good and analytics. And anytime I ever issue a non-select statement, it's in my head, I go 3 times. I go, this table, not production. It's you triple check 3 times on what you're doing before you hit the execute button. Because that was a hard lesson to learn early in my career.
It sounds like your team there handled it pretty well. Sure, they're going to tease you and all that, but you weren't fired. They gave you the opportunity to learn from it.
Yeah,
you worked through it.
Yeah, I mean, luckily the system is pretty stale that we were at, and like it didn't have that big of an impact. But I mean, I don't know, imagine working at some big bank or Coinbase and I'm gonna go delete all the transactional records or something. That could be bad for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super important, and I think that's the good lesson, is that on a non-select statement, just triple checking your head before what you're gonna do. Make sure the semicolons right. You have the whole query and the where conditions set properly.
I mean, that's honestly a hilarious story. Like, I'm glad you have gone into so much success, and like, it didn't knock you out of programming from the start.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great reminder, like you said, like that attention to detail, making sure to double check your work, or get others to do it when possible.
Yeah.
What about as like a leader or a manager? What have been, what's a big lesson you've learned there?
Yeah, as you come up, I've been more of a startup entrepreneur versus, I don't know, gaining the ranks at like a big corporate. So, a lot of times I went from like earlier engineer to more senior engineer in my career, and then started some companies. So immediately I jumped to a leadership position. And, in smaller companies, it's sometimes your friends and whatever. And so it wasn't too big a deal. As we started growing one of my earlier companies and hiring people that I didn't know, so you go through that process of interviewing and bring them in, showing them the culture and whatnot, and trusting them to do, the code and whatnot. So that was all good. And then it was one of my, I don't want to name the company or the person. But,
boy, okay.
Let's just say company Acme and Bob, the developer. But so we brought in this developer, and it was for our iPhone app. And they were like, they were a little green, and but they were trying, and they were doing pretty good. And it's just like, over a month, or I think even 2 months went by, and just like wasn't at the level or pace. All the code reviews were really bad, and working with a lot. My chief architect would work with them a lot and train them up. And as time went on, we just realized it really kind of wasn't working right after you give them, 60, 90 days. And it's like, all right, maybe we made a bad hiring decision. So I think that's first lesson there is definitely have a pretty good rigorous like interview process, understand the technical capabilities, not just the personality fit, and make sure that aligns. And then as you get through this 30, 60, 90 kind of period, have like check-ins along the way and make sure that everyone on both parties and both sides are very clear at how things are going. So anyway, we didn't do all that. And so
learning experiences, like you said, yeah.
So we're going, and back then we were using Skype to do a lot of DM, like instant messaging.
Oh, yeah.
And so I talking to my chief architect, and I'm just like, Bob in this case, I was just like, man, Bob kind of is blowing it. It kind of sucks. Like, I think we should get rid of him. I was like, what do you think? And da-da-da. And then I didn't really see a response. And we were all in the same office. So I look over, and my colleague, he's just coding. He's not paying attention. So I'm like, oh, maybe he didn't see it. And then I look on my screen, and in my head, because I was thinking Bob, I was messaging Bob, not my colleague.
Oh, no.
And Bob sits like back-to-back desks, like where I'm looking into his face, like behind the monitor. So like this is all, within a 10-second window. And then I see him go like this. And he goes, you need to talk to me about something? And I'm just like the slam. I was like, fuck. Like, yeah, let's go outside.
Wow,
that was not good.
Rough. Yeah.
So that was not good. Pay attention to who you. It's almost the same lesson, actually. Like checking your head. You're talking about critical things. We're always moving so fast, and in these startups, and you're go, and that was another good lesson. Very similar vein, I guess. But just in these HR personnel matters, like really take them serious. Make sure it's a measured approach, and if someone's getting terminated, there should be no surprise that they're getting terminated, and there should have been these check-ins. And so while I didn't do that, and then he randomly saw this direct message from me, and it was like, honestly, I forget in Skype if you could delete messages, but I maybe I didn't know or something. So yeah, that just wasn't a good scene. But we had a good talk and realized it wasn't a good fit, and all good. But that was just like an embarrassing leader moment where I was trying to have a private conversation, but went to the wrong person, and led to a bad situation. But yeah.
I'm gonna have to start double checking my Slack messages more. That's definitely telling me that.
It was like a subconscious thing. I was like, oh yeah, but I must send it to that person.
I do think though, like you said, these are both great examples of that kind of attention to detail. And it also really shows that, these are two out of context, maybe like a little embarrassing mistakes, right?
Yeah.
You screwed these things up, but you learned from them, you grew, and now, you're doing these incredible things. You've launched multiple companies. Drata is absolutely killing it.
Thank you.
And I think for anyone in the audience who feels like they're struggling right now, or you've made a mistake recently, like remember, like this is a learning opportunity. It's something you can grow from, and don't let it stop you.
Nope. I mean, it's cliche, but we all learn from our mistakes, and I think that's where it's funny. Sometimes I think about what I've done at Drata differently than before, and then sometimes it's like nothing. Like it's the same process and motion and structure and momentum and coding style and whatever. But then I don't think that's fair. It's like, well, I also have nearly 20 years of lessons learned that we just went through that are ingrained in my memory that I'll never make, again. So I'll never make that mistake again. So it's like, while I'm doing a lot of the same thing and developing and pushing forward in the same momentum as I did earlier in my career, it's like over those, it's been like 17 years now or so, where you take that approach of trying to get 1% better every day. And so over 17 years, that adds up a lot. And so I think, I would say that's where a good, measure of success of Drata has been, along with all my other colleagues who have that kind of same mentality. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for Interact. I know a lot of folks in the audience are loving this story. We got the amusement, we got the interest of it. So thank you so much. And we're excited to have you back for a podcast sometime soon.
Yeah. Cheers.
Have a good one.
Bye.